Hey y'all, so most of you know we have 8 children. Our kids range in age from 15, and actually Jack will be 16 next week, down to 22 months. And I am not an expert mom. I don't know it all. I haven't done everything right, but I do have a lot of experience, and I have kids across every age range. So I get a lot of people asking me a lot of questions about, you know, they notice things in our children, and I'm not trying to be bragging on our family or anything, but I do say the proof is in the pudding. My kids, we have really good kids. We're blessed with wonderful children. They're not perfect. They all have their faults, just like all of us. But for our family, you know, we have really intensely focused intentionally on our children and raising them. And so I kind of want to talk about like keeping the heart of your children, because that's something I get asked about a lot. I get asked, you know, especially with just any size family, how do you keep the heart of your children? But with having so many kids, and little ones and big ones, how are we able to invest in all of them equally and get the results of having kids who are respectful and polite and sweet and loving and caring? And we have very close-knit family and very close relationships and bonds with each and every one of our children. And so I had to really think about that. Like, what have we done? Because it's just been a natural progression in our family of how our dynamics have played out over the years. So I don't know that there's any one specific thing I can say, if you do this, your kids are going to turn out like this. Because there's a lot of factors: your personalities, your parenting style, your children's personalities, and each individual personality in that. So for us, the main core of our parenting, so we have our core of our parenting is how we parent all of our children, and that has changed and grown over the years. We probably parent our little ones a lot differently now than we did our older kids when they were that age. We've just, over the years, we've learned what works and what doesn't for our kids. So like I've said before, our main focus with our kids is just really being intentional and investing in them and spending time with them. You know, we homeschool, so we're with them all the time. We homestead, so we work hard together all the time. We have a lot going on around here, and it requires a lot of effort and a lot of hands. You know, many hands make light work. And so the homesteading lifestyle affords us to instill a lot of values in our children and a lot of lessons, just hardcore life lessons in our kids that they wouldn't get otherwise, that we weren't raising them on a homestead. Another thing about the way we live our life is we really focus on the emotional aspect of life. You know, God created us with emotions. We have emotions for a reason, and we all have to learn to handle those emotions. If you look at our world today, it is full of adults who were not taught how to properly handle their emotions. Why is our divorce rate at 50% in America? Because people don't know how to handle their emotions. They don't know how to have relationships, because broken people hurt, and they hurt other people. And so they don't know how to properly flow in the function of life. So we focus on really just, for one, being a family in the way God intended families to be, in the structure of a family, and not focusing on lots of extracurricular activities. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do extracurricular activities. I'm just saying that your focus needs to be on your family first, and all of those other things need to come after that. Your focus should be on, for us personally, is on God first, then family, then everything else falls into place after that. And so that's how we structure our life and our family. And so whenever our kids are dealing with issues or whatever, they're having a hard time, we know them well enough. Like, we can sense, you know, something's not quite right with one of our kids, so we will take that child aside and we'll invest some time in them. We'll talk to them. We'll say, hey, you know, what's going on? Sometimes they don't know what's going on. Sometimes it's just, you know, that it's a stage they're going through. It's hormones, emotions that they just don't know how to handle. And so we just help them. We talk them through handling that. Sometimes they might be upset, and it might be as simple as they worked really hard on building something out of Legos, and the little sibling came in and destroyed it in like 2 seconds. And so as a result of that, they're not handling their emotions well. They're having a bad attitude, or they're, you know, really upset over it, and they're not dealing well with anybody in the household because they're upset about one little thing. So we take them aside and we talk to them about it, and we deal with it, you know, on their level. And each child is different. Each child's personality is different. You know, you can't deal, there's this balance, because there's a lot of people who say, oh, you can't be your kid's friend, you have to be the mean parent, you have to draw a hard line. And there's some truth in that. And then there's people over here who are like, oh no, don't discipline the child, let them have their free reign, they need to grow and learn through, you know, doing whatever they want, and just encouraging them in a, you know, but don't try to mold them or change them. And I think that if you fall into either extreme spectrum there, you're going to lose the heart of your child. You're not going to effectively raise children that know how to handle life and emotions and function properly as adults. It's just not going to happen. So for us, it's like a balance in between. You know, we know each child personally. Some of them you have to have a little bit more of a hard love line sometimes, not all the time, but you have to know when to step in and say, look, we're going to discipline you, you knew better, you 100% just did this and you shouldn't have. But that is not our first go-to. Our first go-to is always, what's going on? Why are you acting this way? What's happening in your life right now that's making you feel this way? And usually, I would say at least 95% of the time, there is a circumstance or something in the child's life that is causing them to not act the way they want to act. You know, we expect a lot out of children. And I always try to think, okay, I'm an adult. How would I be processing the situation? How would I be acting emotionally and feeling emotionally if I were in their shoes? And when you stop and you think that way, you can much more effectively get to your child's heart and help them process whatever it is they're dealing with. And like sometimes, like I said, it's nothing, we've never dealt with any kind of huge major issue with our kids, because I think a lot of that has to do with because of the fact that we've been steady with them and doing like I'm telling you we follow their hearts, and we really keep them close to us. And by close to us, I don't mean like we overlord them, we don't let them have any fun or friends or anything like that. I just mean that we build a really strong bond and friendship. If you ask any of our kids who their friends are, they'll say, well, their parents and their siblings are their closest friends, and then they have other friends. We just we thoroughly enjoy each other's company. I know a lot of people say, I couldn't homeschool, I couldn't be with my kids all day, I would go crazy. And every day is not perfect, and we have days that are full of chaos, and I'm like, oh, but for the most part, you know, we don't. And I would not change the way we live our life for anything. I would not give up the time that I have with my kids. You know, our oldest is 16 and I'm almost 16, and I'm sitting here going, wow, that went by so fast, and how long is he going to be at home, you know? And I'm really trying to cherish the time with him and look at him as he's nearing the young adult phase of his life, and looking at, okay, I'm really proud of him and what he's become, and saying, what do we need to do and help him with to even more effectively equip him for stepping into the next stage of life. And that's kind of what we do with each of them. It's equipping them where they are to step up into the next stage. And so people asking me, you know, what do you do? How do you do this? And I really have to liken it and say, well, what you're doing with your children, you know, for us as Christians, you know, we're looking at God the Father. He is the ultimate Father. And we want to see, how do we want God to father us? What does the Bible say? And the Bible says He delights in us, and we are His children, and He loves us. And yes, He corrects us. But I want God to be the Father that wants to be my friend and wants to draw me close to Him and wants to know me intimately and know my heart and be able to just intimately share my heart with Him and build that kind of relationship with Him. And I want to set that kind of example for my children so that they also want to mimic that and build that kind of relationship with God. And on top of that, I want God to be fathering me like that in all love, friendship kind of relationship. I don't want a God and a Father that's going to be smiting me every time I turn around, because I make mistakes, and I don't want to be harshly disciplined when I make a mistake, because it was a mistake and I didn't mean to. I like that gentle conviction of the Holy Spirit that comes in and you realize, okay, yeah, I need to change this area of my life, or I didn't do this right, or I shouldn't have acted that way, things like that. But nothing that is a really harsh, come down hard on you kind of, you know, God's not grounding me for a week from doing anything fun. I'm an adult, I have my, you know, I make my choices, and I feel that conviction when my choices aren't what they should be, but God's not smiting me. So when I think of it that way, and I think about the perspective of children and how we parent them, there's a time and a place for the discipline, there's a time and a place for tough love, but for the most part, it's really of like, how do I want God to father me So how am I going to father or parent my child? How am I going to mother my children? I want my parenting skills, my parenting style to be a 100% complete reflection of God and how He fathers us. So that's just kind of my personal perspective on it and what we've done with our kids and what we're doing, and we'll continue to grow, we'll continue to learn. I'm sure we'll continue to change the way we parent, and I know that's not, this isn't like super specific for any one thing, and I have some thoughts on more specific topics on mothering and parenting and keeping the heart of your kids and things like that, but I just kind of want to throw out there my heart a little bit on the issue, and just what we're doing right now, what we've been doing over the course of our parenting journey, and kind of encourage you to really look inside and see, you know, what are you doing with your kids, if it's working or it's not working. I've had people who are having maybe some difficult times with their children. They feel like they're losing their heart a little bit, they're getting attitudes, they're not respecting their parents a lot, and not to parent bash and say, well, you've done it all wrong, because that's not always the case. But there's so much you have to factor in. It's like a child's personality, and if you want to try to run that child like a drill sergeant, you're going to breed rebellion. You're going to push them away, and you can't also just like give them whatever they want and become a pushover for them. They'll have no respect for you. But if you're having these problems and it's consistently with the child that this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, you need to, and you're expecting your child to change, you need to stop first and do a lot of introspective looking and think, well, what can I do? What can I change in myself that's going to help this child change? You know, like I said, don't become a doormat to him and don't be a drill sergeant to him, but there's probably something that you can find, you can, you know, see in yourself that, well, if I just change, and it's not always major changes, sometimes it's just a little bit of a change of an attitude as a parent, the attitude you carry. You know, if your child always feels like they're failing or they don't meet up to your standards no matter what they do, if you're the kind of person that a kid does a job and you're like, well, you did a really good job, but this is what you didn't do right, because you're always encouraging them to do better, that doesn't always work, because if a kid feels like no matter how hard they work and no matter how good of a job they did, you're always going to find the one thing that they didn't do perfectly, they're going to feel like they'll never meet up to a standard in their life. So that's something, you know, that's just one example I can think of that I've seen and a lot of people do. You know, a lot of people have said, a lot of adults have said, you know, well, my parents always encouraged me to do my best, no matter how good of a job it was. They always gave me, you know, constructive criticism and all that, and I was like, well, I think constructive criticism definitely has a time and a place, but if it's 100% of the time when your kids do something that's sad, they need to know that you were their cheerleader and you're proud of them and you think that their best was good enough. Because children aren't going to do jobs perfectly. I'm an adult and I don't do jobs perfectly. So to expect 100% perfection out of a child all the time is not really something that we can expect. We really need to give them a lot of wiggle room to learn and grow and build and learn how to do the criticism and the build up in a way that's very loving and caring and not just, you know, flat. You didn't do this part right. So that's just another thought I had with it. It kind of all goes hand in hand. It's just, you know, look at your kids and where they are and what your goal is for your family and what you want to see out of your kids, the fruits you desire to see. And there's specific fruits you have to personally invest those fruits in your kids. If you expect your kids to be compassionate and caring and giving, well, you need to be an example to them, but not just to other people outside your home. You need to be that way towards your children, because if you're one way outside your home and you're like, you can be serving others all the time, but if you're not a fun mom at home and you're not giving and serving your children, and I don't mean waiting on them hand and foot, but just having a servant's heart towards them, that's where they're going to get the example the most. That's what's going to speak to the most, is what you do inside the four walls of your home. It's where they're going to get the most learning from you and the most value out of what you have to offer them. So just some advice. I don't even really want to call it advice, because I'm not the always knowing parent, mother, whatever, but it's just my experience and things that I've observed and thoughts I've had over the course of, you know, the last 16 years of parenting, and some of it is mistakes I've personally made, and I've learned through that how to be a better parent and how to better parent the children that God has given me with their personalities. So anyways, if there's more things that you would like to know about, like specifically how we parent, or specific questions that you'd like to ask me, go ahead and leave that in the comments. I'm going to try to do more videos like this, and if it's something that I have experience with or I have some thoughts on, I will be glad to throw my 2 cents out there about it. And if it's not something that I have experience in or any kind of opinion on, and I can just say, hey, you know, I don't really know what I'm talking about, because I don't want to put out videos about stuff that I just don't know what I'm talking about, because that's not cool. But anyway, I don't want to, I just want to be really real and raw and honest with y'all about how we do things and what our life is like. So if it's not something that I know anything about, I'm not gonna like pretend I do, because that's crazy. There's no value in that for you, and there's no value in that for me. So anyway, alright, well, I hope that you enjoyed this and encouraged you in your parenting journey. And there's a bug on my arm. Anyway, and then next time, don't know what I'm gonna come at you with, but hopefully I will have some more thoughts to give you like this.